What's up, guys? So we are in Point Pleasant and the camera is facing where the Silver Bridge stood. So I figure what better place to talk about the Mothman than where the Mothman lived. So Point Pleasant here has had a lot of history and a lot of deaths and a lot of sad stories behind it. I'm going to try and hit every corner of the story here. So let's start with the Battle of Point Pleasant. October 10th of 1774 was said to be a foggy and cool morning with about 1,000 men led by Colonel Andrew Lewis, and they camped along the banks of the two rivers. And they waited for another group coming from Pittsburgh that would unite to squash the raids of the American Indian tribes here in Point Pleasant. But the great Shawnee chief Cornstalk had other plans, opting to attack the smaller force around Point Pleasant before the two militias could connect. Cornstalk's warrior was discovered by two soldiers hunting for something to eat, and they rushed to warn their fellow troops about the acres and acres of Indians that they had encountered. Andrew Lewis initially scoffed, thinking it was just a small raiding party, but he quickly learned that it was just the opposite. The battle raged on for hours, and it was said that the rivers ran red that day, before Cornstalk eventually retreated his forces back across the river. Both sides suffered heavy casualties that day, and Cornstalk eventually agreed to a peace treaty that would prohibit attacks on the white settlers. The treaty also prevented the native tribes from becoming allies to the British Army. The site of the battle is memorialized by a monument erected in 1909. When Chief Cornstalk, the Revolutionary War was in full force, Cornstalk desperately tried to maintain peace on the frontier, as the British were sending supplies and weapons to tribes as an encouragement for them to launch raids on the frontier. Cornstalk traveled to Fort Randolph in 1777 to warn about an assault that the Native American tribes were planning, and he was taken into custody and eventually killed, him and his son, by these troops. As he lays there dying, the legend says that he uttered these words and cursed the land. "I was the border man's friend. Many times I have saved him from his people's harm. I never warred with you, but only to protect our wigwams and lands. I refused to join your pale-faced enemies with red coats. I came to the fort as your friend, and you murdered me. You murdered by my side my young son. For this, may the curse of the Great Spirit rest upon this land. May it be blighted in its hopes, and may the strength of its people be paralyzed by the stain of our blood." Cornstalk's body was later dumped in the Kanawha River. I believe I pronounced that right. But it was later retrieved and buried at Fort Randolph. And then his grave was moved to a monument here in Point Pleasant. I want to get more into Mad Ann Bailey. During the Battle of Point Pleasant, it proved a defining moment in the life of Ann Bailey's and her husband Richard Trotter, which were both killed in the battle. The Shawnee called her Mad Ann, or the White Squaw of the Kanawha. Ann rode the frontier. I have a spider on me. Jesus. I am terrified of spiders. Sorry, guys. No, look, he's right down here.
With spider webs on it.
Nice. Okay. She snuck into the camps and took the horse that they had stole from them, and she ran. She felt she had traveled far enough away. She began screaming loudly. The Shawnee believed that she was possessed by the evil spirits that could not be injured by arrows or bullets. That fear allowed her to travel safely through the woods. In 1788, she married John Bailey, a ranger, and the couple lived at Fort Lee near Charleston. That fort came under attack in 1971, and she rode 100 miles to Fort Savannah and Lewisburg to obtain ammunition, which is credited with saving Fort Lee. Her remains are buried here at 2 Indy Way Park in Point Pleasant as well. So that's kind of the back history. This land is still supposedly cursed, or was just lifted of the curse just lately. And a lot of things have happened since the curse had started. There was a great flood that wiped out the whole town. Buildings have exploded. People have died. Prisons have been raided. All kinds of crazy stuff has happened. But this town is more known for the Mothman and the Silver Bridge collapse, so I want to kind of get more into that. There was 13 months of complete mystery and chaos, starting in November of '66. It started with two couples who drove to the TNT area and spotted this creature with red eyes and stood about 6 feet tall and had a wingspan of 10 feet. And it didn't attack them. It just kind of followed their car as they approached 100 miles an hour. It was keeping up with them. And that was just the beginning of the stories of the Mothman. For the next 13 months, there was over 100 sightings of the same exact thing that they claimed. Red eyes, 10-foot wingspan. This thing flew. And a lot of people questioned, is this a monster? Is this a demon? What was this creature? And nobody really knew until the Silver Bridge collapsed. They believed that the Mothman came as a bearer of bad news, kind of warning them about the bridge collapsing. A lot of people also believe that the Mothman caused the bridge collapse. We'll never really know the truth behind the Mothman. We do know the truth behind the Silver Bridge. I believe it was a bolt had like snapped or cracked or something like that, and it caused the whole bridge to collapse. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the notes here to back me up on that. But I've got tons of newspaper articles. Can you go grab that book? Tons of newspaper articles, tons of letters that was written to the news people, just based on the stories and what they saw. And you know, it's a lot of people don't believe in the Mothman. I don't know how that's possible when there were so many people who saw the same thing and they didn't even know each other. But here I have the Mothman, a picture of the Mothman statue. You can come out here to Point Pleasant and see him. And I also have the first drawing of what he supposedly looked like. In 1928, a Silver Bridge was built and named for the metallic aluminum paint used to coat its steel beams. The Silver Bridge spanned the Ohio River, connecting Point Pleasant and Gallipolis. But on a chilly Friday night in December 15th of 1967, the structure became the site of the world's largest bridge disaster, killing, I want to say 40, I want to get this right. 64 people were trapped in their cars and dumped into the icy waters below as the bridge's deck began twisting and crumbling on top of them. 46 of those people did not make it out of the water alive. A task force on the bridge safety determined that a small stress fracture, a crack that was less than an inch deep inside the load-bearing steel beam, caused the bridge to fail. The task force was also concluded that there would have been no way for engineers or the maintenance crew to know that the crack was there. The crack may have been caused by years of natural movement of the bridge and it's being exposed to the weather. And like I said, you're looking at where the bridge would have stood, right next to this train track bridge. Super crazy that we're actually here right now. 31 vehicles went into the river. Like I said, 64 were trapped in the water. It was 44 degrees that night. 2 bodies are still missing, supposedly in the bottom of this river still. They pulled out majority of the cars. So that's good to know, but there's a lot of hauntings that happen here in this town, and I believe some of them are probably the spirits that linger because of the bridge collapse. But right now I'm going to show you guys some pictures. Like I said, I have this book here that's just a whole bunch of letters that the people wrote. It's also got newspaper articles from the time. People believed it could have been a bird or a crane or a balloon. And then a lot of people just didn't know what was going on. So, I mean, there's tons. UFOs, I'll get more into those here in just a minute. But a saucer flying around. They believe that the Mothman could have been an angel. Will you go grab the other book that has pictures of the bridge? Let's get into a little bit about the UFOs and the Bigfoot sightings. I mean, there's a lot of cryptids here in West Virginia. Some of them are the sheep squatch, the Mothman, the Flatwoods monster. There's been UFO sightings, a lot of sightings of the Men in Black here in town. But there was a man, his name was Indrid Cold. I need my notes back. There was a man here known by the name of Indrid Cold. He was believed to be one of these Men in Black, and he would come down from wherever he came from and just tell people not to speak of the Mothman. But there was one sighting that stood out to a lot of people, and the guy's name was Woodrow Derenberger, and he was driving down the road, State Route 62 here, and there were some lights up ahead, and he pulled over thinking maybe it was cops, and it obviously wasn't. And a man approached his car, and I'm going to read exactly what he said in an interview here. He asked me to roll down the window on the right hand side of my truck, so I did what he asked. And this man stood there and first asked me what I was called, and I know he meant my name. So I told him my name, and he asked, "Why are you frightened? Don't be scared, we wish you no harm." He said, "We mean you no harm, we wish you only happiness." So I told him my name, and he said that he went by Cold, Indrid Cold. The man talked to him telepathically. He talked with a big smile. This is supposedly what he looked like. Creepy, right? His smile never moved. As he talked, his smile stayed. So he was telepathically speaking. And there was many sightings of Indrid Cold in the post office and other buildings here in town. But these Men in Black came down again from wherever they came from and told these people who sighted the Mothman, don't speak of him. It's not good news. Do not speak of the Mothman. I want to say there was close to 20 sightings of the Men in Black here in town, probably more. Again, don't quote me on that. But they said that he came down on a cigar-shaped UFO. Nobody could explain what it was. Whether you choose to believe it is completely up to you. But a lot of crazy things have happened here in this town. But I haven't even really got into the ghost part of it, so I want to kind of start with that. In town here, there's a river museum that sits on part of the land that was once the battleground. People that visit the museum have seen shadowy figures. Occasionally, people will spot a ghost that appears to be one of the workers from the building that served as a mercantile, if I pronounced that right. The River Museum is just up the road here. It's right next to 2 Indy Way Park. Also, I'll answer a question that most people will probably ask. What does 2 Indy Way mean? It's where 2 rivers meet. So obviously you're staring at the Ohio River. There's another river just to the left of the camera that runs into the Ohio River. So that's what 2 Indy Way means. There's a house down the road called the Summers House, which was once owned by the influential Summers family. Contractors and staff who worked on the house have heard a number of strange, inexplainable noises. Don't really have much detail about that. I'm looking into it, so once I get more information, I'll let you guys know. But again, I've only heard about this Summers House a couple times. Again, Mothman sightings, tons of them. After the bridge collapsed, the basement of the hardware store here in town was used for a temporary morgue because it was too cold to bury the bodies. There's also a historic theater here in town that has had the door bang open. People have seen shadows moving through the windows. All kinds of crazy stuff there. But if you come to town, there's one building that really stands out, and it's known all over the U.S. It's the historic Lowe Hotel. Here's a picture of it. Oh, well, maybe. It's right across the street from the Mothman Museum. I've been inside of here. We have not investigated it yet. It's in the books. It's said to be haunted by playful children, a former maid, and a sea captain waiting for a boat. So that's just kind of the brief behind it. I'll get more into it on a couple of our next podcasts. But let me make sure I don't have any more notes or anything else to add here. Oh, here's a picture of the River Museum. Like I said, it's kind of an old-fashioned building. The Summers House and the theater. Oh, wow. The phone just fell over. Didn't even touch it. And the theater. I'm gonna have to edit that out if I can. If not, sorry guys, I just dropped you on your face. So that's pretty much the gist of the story. I can really get into this story and talk for hours, but I just wanted to kind of make a summary of it. If you guys want to know more, let me know, and maybe I'll touch base on more parts of the story. But we're going to be here in town all day, and we're going to do an investigation right here where the bridge collapsed, and also where the Mothman supposedly lived, which is in the TNT area. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Watch for those YouTube videos. They'll be coming out soon. I got some pictures here of where the bridge collapsed. I'm trying to find them. Oh, here we go. Is it going to focus? There we go. So there's that. Some cars. If you look up here, there's what the bridge looked like right up here. Just some more pictures. Like I said, you guys can buy these books in the Mothman Museum. They're like 20 bucks a piece. Totally worth it. I've had these for a while. I'm surprised I haven't lost them or destroyed them yet, because I'm not responsible with some stuff. There's a newspaper article from where the bridge collapsed. But anyway, I'm going to end this podcast here. I hope you guys enjoy. Comment and let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys next time.